Of the 17 million bicycles sold in America last year, roughly 99% were imported from either China or Taiwan. Only 200,000 can claim to be made in the USA. In Part 1, we looked at Bike Friday, Calfee, and independent fabrications. In Part 2, we'll look at Linski, Moots, Parley, and Seven.
Hi, I'm Mark Linski, one of the family members of Linski Performance Designs here in Chattanooga. Everything we do is done right here in these walls. We make our own, not only do we make the bikes, we make our own tooling and our jigs and our fixtures, and it's all done right here. We're in our 8th year now and just over 40 employees, 14 different countries around the world. Matter of fact, over 70% of everything we build actually leaves America and goes somewhere else. We got started in the bicycle business. It actually started back in the mid-'80s when one of my younger brothers, David, who's a runner, started having knee trouble, had to give up running and take up something with a little less impacts, and didn't want to swim, so we started local bike racing. At that time, we were a metals fabricator here in Chattanooga, really more all industrial oriented, doing a lot with the chemical industry, with a lot of exotic metals, one of which was titanium. And so David decides, it's what we do, I'm going to make my own bike frame. And he bought a little how to build a frame book, and I can close my eyes and remember he and I standing out on the shop floor going, okay, they call that a chain stay, they call that a seat stay, etc. And after hours, we had some titanium in the rack, wrong alloy, wrong size tubes, so we got a bike built. By 1993, we were actually building for 21 different brands across the world. And that's how we actually learned cycling, and that's how we learned the metrics of what a bike needs to be doing. And we knew the metal, so we knew how to make the metal do what they needed it to do. That grew, and by 1996, we walked away from all industrial work, committed full-time to cycling, and that's all we've been doing ever since.
Moots was founded in 1981 here in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. We've been in this location in our nice little town here in the mountains ever since. Those early days of Moots were filled with steel frames for about 10 years. And then in 1991, we switched to titanium. We're sold throughout the world, so we're distributing to dealers in the U.S., overseas, and slowly growing our business. Not radical by leaps and bounds, but a nice slow growth over the years. So here at Moots, it's quite a good bunch of folks building bikes. We've got 24 full-time employees, and they run the gamut from our miter shop to our welders, to our finish crew, to our CNC department, all the way up to the folks that are answering the phone every day and talking to customers. Our philosophies and our thinking with titanium is always sourcing, to start with, the best material we can get our hands on. And what that means to us is US source materials. On a typical year basis, we're producing anywhere between 12 and 1,400 frames, depending on the year. We've got an amazing crew throughout the building and a huge passion for cycling, no matter what the discipline is. It's quite amazing to see the smile on their face when they ride away on their dream bike. And that's what it's all about for us, is getting that customer to realize that dream of owning such a nice bike that every time they get on it, they couldn't be happier.
Hey, I'm Tom Rohde, the National Sales Manager for Parley Cycles. We're in our shop in Peabody, Massachusetts. This is where we produce all of our custom bikes. This is where we have all our offices, our warehouse for our stock bikes. We have our paint shop. When dealers and customers come here on a tour, I normally start them right here. This is a chest freezer. This is where we keep our raw material. And most people, this is the first time they've seen raw carbon fiber in the flesh. What is carbon really like in the flesh? And basically, It's a fabric, and as I said before, it's been pre-impregnated with epoxy, so it develops a little bit of tack. And as this comes out of the freezer and up to room temperature, the tack develops a little bit more. This is unidirectional carbon, and this is really the most important piece of raw material to see, because this is at the heart of what we do here at Parley Cycles, is use unidirectional carbon fiber. We have 5 complete different tube sets that we use. They're manufactured for us by Edge Composites out in Ogden, Utah. Myself or Bob, for each customer, as we design a custom bike, will hand select, as part of the CAD process, which tube goes which place for each rider. Now, the tubes are mitered, and they're cut on tooling and fixtures very similar to what a titanium or a steel builder or an aluminum builder would use. The only difference is we use diamond-tipped cutting tools, and we do a dry process. And you can see the mitering is as perfect and as tight of a gap, where you go tube to tube, as you would get from any other process. We actually build the joints when we build the bike, so it's a very different philosophy to a lot of other types of construction. We use a process that's called captured rubber tooling. What that means is we use a flexible mold to compress and mold our joints. We don't use a hard mold. And so what that allows us to do is change the angle at which the tubes can enter and make an intersection. So we can change the angles of the bike. People think, oh, you just spray paint it, let it dry, and it's ready to ship. Well, there's actually about a week beyond that, most times, of wet sanding and buffing. This bike will come here and it's going to spend the good part of a day. The type of finish grade we get on this is equivalent to the finest automotive finishing. It's a similar type of paint, it's a similar type of sanding process, and it's a similar type of buffing process.
Hi, I'm Rob Vandermark. Welcome to 7 Cycles. We're going to get a tour of the factory, and you're going to get to see how 7 makes custom bikes and every bike to order. So come on in. So the first step to building the 7, once we receive an order and have confirmed it with a customer and the retailer, is we'll choose the tube set, and that begins in here. So this is a frame that we've done the design work on, and the tube set selection begins with a calculation based on the type of bike the rider is using, the rider's weight, preferences of how stiff or comfortable they want the bike. Once that is done, we're ready to start manufacturing. So now we go out in the shop and select the tube set from there. Now we're into the finishing. All the alignment's been checked, all the prep work is done, the bottom bracket's been threaded. So now the real focus is making the bike as beautiful as possible for the customer. Matt is doing the finished work. He's removing any oxide, any dirt and grime that gets on the frame through the process. So he's getting the frame ready now for decals and final waxing of the frame.